Let's be honest, most of what you've been told about how to win in life is a lie. From childhood, you're taught to play fair, be nice, and trust that good things come to good people. But step into the real world, and you'll see a different game being played. The people who rise to the top aren't always the kindest or the most honest. They're the ones who understand the hidden rules, the ones who know how to bend the system in their favor. If you've ever felt blindsided by someone's dirty tactics, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Playing nice is often a losing strategy. While you're busy following the rules, someone else is quietly rewriting them. They're using psychological tricks, subtle manipulation, and ruthless strategies to get ahead, while you're left wondering what just happened. If you don't know how to defend yourself, you're not just at a disadvantage, you're a target. But what if you could flip the script? What if you could see through the games, anticipate every move, and turn the tables on anyone who tries to play dirty with you? In this video, I'm going to reveal 5 Machiavellian mental tricks that the most cunning people use to crush their rivals. These aren't feel-good tips. They're the real, raw strategies that separate the prey from the predators. Ready to stop being a victim and start playing to win? Let's dive in. If you want to survive and thrive in a world where power games are the norm, you need to start thinking like a predator, not prey. This isn't about becoming a villain or abandoning your morals. It's about recognizing that in every social or professional environment, there are people who see life as a chessboard. They're not playing for fun. They're playing to win. And if you're not aware of the game, you're already losing. Mainstream advice tells you to be yourself, trust your gut, and assume the best in others. But predators don't operate on trust or blind optimism. They observe, analyze, and strike only when the odds are in their favor. They don't get emotional when someone tries to manipulate them. They get curious. They don't react impulsively. They respond with cold calculation. This is the first mental shift you need to make. Stop seeing yourself as a passive participant and start seeing yourself as a player with agency. So, how do you spot manipulation before it's too late? Start by paying attention to patterns, not just words. Predators look for emotional weaknesses, insecurities, desires, fears, and they exploit them. If someone is unusually flattering, always agreeing with you, or pushing you to make quick decisions, don't take it at face value. Ask yourself, what do they stand to gain? What's their real motive? The predator's mindset is about seeing beneath the surface, reading between the lines, and never assuming that someone's intentions are as innocent as they appear. But here's the real secret. Predators don't just defend themselves. They set the tone. They project calm confidence, even when under attack. They don't let others dictate the emotional climate of the room. If someone tries to provoke you, insult you, or guilt trip you, the predator's response is simple: detachment. Imagine yourself as an observer, not a participant. When you detach emotionally, you become unpredictable. Manipulators thrive on emotional reactions. When you give them nothing, you starve them of power. This doesn't mean you never show emotion or become a robot. It means you choose when and how to respond. You control the narrative. If someone tries to corner you with a loaded question or a passive-aggressive comment, pause. Let silence do the work. Watch their body language. Often, they'll reveal more in their discomfort than they ever would with words. Adopting the predator's mindset is about reclaiming your power. It's about refusing to be an easy target. The moment you stop reacting and start observing, you shift the balance of power in your favor. And once you master this mindset, you're ready to move from defense to offense, to use subtle psychological tactics that put you in control of every interaction. Next, we'll dive into one of the most effective tools in the Machiavellian arsenal, the art of psychological mirroring. Now that you've adopted the predator's mindset, it's time to add a powerful weapon to your arsenal: psychological mirroring. This isn't just about copying someone's body language or speech patterns. It's about using subtle mimicry to disarm manipulators, build instant rapport, and gain influence before your opponent even realizes what's happening. Most people think influence is about being charismatic or outspoken, but the real masters of power know that the fastest way to get inside someone's head is to make them feel understood, almost as if you're their reflection. Here's the hidden truth. People are naturally drawn to those who seem familiar, who get them on a subconscious level. When you mirror someone's tone, posture, or even their choice of words, you bypass their defenses. They start to trust you, open up, and reveal more than they intended. Manipulators use this all the time, but most people never notice it happening. Let's break down how this works. Imagine you're in a tense negotiation or a heated argument. Instead of pushing back or trying to dominate, you subtly match the other person's energy. If they're speaking softly, you lower your voice. If they lean in, you lean in. If they use certain phrases, you weave those same words into your responses. This isn't about being a parrot. It's about creating a psychological echo that makes the other person feel comfortable and seen. But here's where the Machiavellian twist comes in. Mirroring isn't just about making friends. It's a tool for gathering intel and steering the conversation. When someone feels at ease, they're more likely to drop their guard and reveal their true intentions. You can use this to extract information, test their boundaries, or even plant ideas in their mind. The best manipulators in history, think politicians, con artists, and high-level negotiators, have all mastered this art. Of course, there's a fine line between mirroring and mockery. If you're too obvious, people will sense something's off. The key is subtlety. Mirror just enough to build connection, then gradually lead the interaction in the direction you want. For example, if you want someone to calm down, start by matching their intensity. Then slowly relax your posture and tone. More often than not, they'll unconsciously follow your lead. Mirroring also works as a defensive tactic. If you suspect someone is trying to manipulate you, mirror their behavior back at them. This creates a psychological standoff. Suddenly, they're looking in a mirror and can't get the reaction they want. It throws them off balance and gives you the upper hand. Mastering psychological mirroring gives you silent control over any interaction. It's the difference between being a passive participant and a strategic influencer. And once you've learned to disarm and direct with mirroring, you're ready for the next level, using silence and ambiguity as weapons to destabilize anyone who tries to play dirty with you. If you want to see someone who plays dirty start to sweat, don't argue with them, go silent. In a world obsessed with constant communication, silence is a weapon most people never learn to wield. But those who understand power know that what you don't say is often more devastating than anything you could say out loud. Silence creates tension, uncertainty, and most importantly, space for your opponent to make mistakes. Mainstream advice tells you to speak your truth and clear the air whenever there's conflict. But here's the hidden truth. The more you explain, the more ammunition you give to manipulators. They want you to fill the silence, to reveal your thoughts, your fears, your next move. When you refuse to play that game, you force them into unfamiliar territory. Suddenly, they're the ones scrambling to fill the void, and in their rush, they often reveal more than they intend. Imagine you're confronted by someone trying to guilt trip you or back you into a corner. Instead of defending yourself or firing back, you simply pause. You let the silence hang in the air, unbroken and uncomfortable. Watch what happens. Most people can't handle it. They'll start justifying themselves, over-explaining, or even confessing things you never asked about. That's when you know you've taken control. But silence isn't your only tool. Ambiguity is just as powerful. When someone tries to pin you down with a loaded question or a manipulative statement, respond with something open-ended or non-committal. That's an interesting perspective. I'll have to think about that. Maybe these responses are maddening to someone who wants a clear reaction. They can't read you, can't predict your next move, and that uncertainty eats away at their confidence. The beauty of ambiguity is that it keeps your options open. You're not committing to a position, so you can adapt as the situation evolves. Meanwhile, your opponent is left guessing, second-guessing, and often overplaying their hand. In power games, the person who reveals the least always has the advantage. Of course, this approach takes discipline. The urge to fill silence or clarify your stance is strong, especially if you're used to being direct. But remember, every time you resist that urge, you're training yourself to be more unpredictable, more formidable. You're teaching others that you can't be easily manipulated or provoked. Weaponizing silence and ambiguity isn't about being passive. It's about being strategic. You're not retreating. You're setting a trap. The more uncomfortable your opponent becomes, the more likely they are to make a mistake. And when they do, you'll be ready to strike. Now that you know how to destabilize dirty players with silence and ambiguity, it's time to take things a step further. Let's talk about how to set psychological traps that force your rivals into lose-lose situations. The infamous double bind. If you really want to see a manipulator squirm, there's nothing more effective than the double bind. This is the psychological equivalent of checkmate, a trap where every possible move your opponent makes leads to their own downfall. The double bind is a classic Machiavellian tactic used by everyone from ruthless negotiators to cunning politicians. It's subtle, devastating, and almost impossible to escape unless you know what to look for. Let's break it down. A double bind is a situation where no matter how someone responds, they lose. It's the ultimate power play because it forces your opponent to choose between two equally undesirable outcomes. For example, imagine a boss who says, "You're free to speak your mind here." But people who complain never last long. If you speak up, you're marked as a complainer. If you stay silent, you're complicit. Either way, you're trapped. Mainstream advice tells you to be honest and stand your ground. But in the world of power dynamics, that's exactly what manipulators want. They want you to pick a side, to react emotionally, to play by their rules. The hidden truth is that the most powerful people don't just avoid traps, they set them. They create scenarios where their rivals are forced to make impossible choices, revealing their weaknesses in the process. So, how do you set a double bind? Start by identifying your opponent's motivations and fears. Then, craft your words or actions so that any response they give exposes them or weakens their position. For instance, in a negotiation, you might say, "I'm sure you want what's best for both of us, so I assume you'll agree to these terms, unless, of course, you're not as committed to fairness as you say." Now, if they agree, you get what you want. If they disagree, they look unreasonable or dishonest. Either way, you win. But what if someone tries to use a double bind against you? The key is to recognize the trap before you step into it. Don't accept the premise of their question or statement. Instead, reframe the situation or introduce a third option. If someone says, "Are you incompetent or just lazy?" you can respond, "I don't accept that either of those describes me. Let's talk about the real issue." By refusing to play their game, you break the bind and regain control. The double bind is a weapon for those who understand the deeper layers of human psychology. It's not about brute force. It's about subtlety, anticipation, and strategic thinking. When you master this tactic, you become the architect of the game, not just another piece on the board. With the double bind in your toolkit, you're ready for the final and most ruthless mental trick, using your reputation as both a shield and a sword to crush anyone who dares to attack you. In the world of power games, your reputation is everything. It's your armor, your currency, and sometimes your most lethal weapon. The harsh reality is that dirty players know this, and they'll do anything to tarnish your name if it gives them an edge. But here's the Machiavellian twist. You don't just have to defend your reputation. You can use it to destroy those who try to undermine you, turning their attacks into their own undoing. Mainstream self-help tells you to rise above, gossip, and let your work speak for itself. But in the real world, silence is often mistaken for guilt, and a single rumor can do more damage than 1,000 truths. The hidden truth is that reputation management is an active, ongoing battle. If you're not shaping the narrative, someone else will, and they'll shape it against you. So, how do you protect yourself? First, never react emotionally to an attack. That's exactly what your enemies want. Instead, respond with calm, calculated confidence. If someone spreads lies about you, don't rush to defend yourself or launch into a public argument. Instead, subtly highlight your track record, your integrity, and your value, preferably in front of the same audience your attacker is trying to sway. Let your actions and quiet confidence speak louder than any accusation. But defense is only half the game. The real Machiavellian move is to turn the tables. If someone is trying to damage your reputation, look for their own weak spots, their inconsistencies, their past mistakes, their hidden motives. Without ever launching a direct attack, you can plant seeds of doubt. Ask questions in public that make others reconsider your rival's credibility. That's an interesting claim. Has anyone else experienced that? Or, I wonder what motivated them to say that now. These subtle nudges can erode trust in your attacker without making you look petty or vindictive. Another powerful tactic is to align yourself with respected figures or groups. When your reputation is under fire, association with credible allies acts as a shield. Dirty players rarely attack those who are well connected because the social cost is too high. Build alliances, support others publicly, and make yourself indispensable to your network. The more valuable you are, the harder it is for anyone to bring you down. And if you really want to make dirty players pay, let their own behavior expose them. Give them enough rope, and they'll hang themselves. Encourage transparency, document interactions, and let others see the patterns for themselves. When your rival's manipulations come to light, their reputation will crumble, while yours stands stronger than ever. Strategic reputation destruction isn't about playing dirty for the sake of it. It's about survival, influence, and making sure that anyone who tries to attack you thinks twice before doing it again. With your reputation as both shield and sword, you're no longer just defending yourself. You're dominating the game. Now, let's bring everything together and talk about how these 5 Machiavellian mental tricks can transform you from a target into a true power player. You've just unlocked 5 of the most powerful mental tricks that separate the prey from the predators in the real world of power games. First, you learn to adopt the predator's mindset, seeing through manipulation and responding with calculated detachment. Then, you mastered psychological mirroring, using subtle mimicry to disarm and influence anyone, even the most cunning manipulators. You discovered how to weaponize silence and ambiguity, destabilizing dirty players and forcing them to reveal their true intentions. You learned to set and escape the double bind trap, turning impossible situations into opportunities for dominance. And finally, you saw how to protect your reputation while subtly undermining those who attack you, making your name both a shield and a sword. The truth is, if you don't master these tactics, someone else will use them against you. In a world where playing nice is often a losing strategy, you can't afford to be naive. These aren't just tricks. They're survival skills for anyone who refuses to be a victim. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these Machiavellian mental tricks are you going to use first? Have you ever faced a dirty player and turned the tables? Drop your story in the comments below. If you found value in this video, hit subscribe and join a community that's done with being prey. Share this with someone who needs to hear the truth about power. Remember, knowledge is power, but only if you use it. Thanks for watching.